So I finally found the time to paint again after several months of not painting at all. I've only been drawing, and even that only occasionally because with university I just didn't find the time at all. So I had some anxiety about starting again, and I wanted to start with something somewhat simple that I like, and I also used paints that would make it easier. So this particular painting was done in acrylics, which is a bit easier for me than gouache, which I usually do. And I chose a particularly cute subject, even cuter than usual, which is these three harvest mice that are sharing a flower together and sitting on it and looking around. Harvest mice are some of my favorite little creatures because just simply because of the fact that they're so small that they can balance on something as fragile as a flower without bending it or anything. And I just love seeing these tiny little creatures with their black beady eyes sitting in plants. Yeah, which is why I chose this subject. I don't know. This is harvest mice at their best, in my opinion. So, of course, I started off with a pencil sketch and then I started to block in the colors. Since I haven't painted in a long time, I kind of had a bit of trouble finding the right colors at first. And what I do when that happens is I just try to fill in the colors anyway. I try to get as close as I can, but I know that their colors are probably going to be wrong. And if you look at the image that I was trying to copy, you'll also see that they were quite off. But the point of this is to just kind of warm up and also give yourself colors to compare to, because if you have just a blank canvas in front of you, it's very hard to pick colors. But if you actually see a bunch of colors already, even if they're not the right ones, it's easier to find the right ones, because you'll be looking at a brown, for example, and be going like, well, the brown I actually want is a bit warmer than this, so I'll just add some red to it, and then I have my color. I think that's one of the best things. If you don't know which colors to mix, just mix something that seems at least kind of in the ballpark and then just correct it. If you're using acrylic paint, you can go over it again and again, so it's really not nothing to worry about. It's just part of the process. But I also have to say, I think the color matching thing here would have been easier for me if I had toned the canvas to start with. I honestly pretty much just forgot to do it this time because it had been a while, and that caused some issues for me because I don't know if it's as obvious to other people, but when I'm looking at this, the white spots really stand out to me. It's like a beacon of light that's throwing me off. It's also one of the reasons I try to put some colors down because I really want to get rid of that white. And then once I have all the basic colors blocked in, I can work on refining them. For example, I had picked kind of a desaturated pink for the flowers, mostly an accident. I think the pink just got mixed with some green because I had green on my palette from the plant. And so I went over it again with a more saturated pink. This time the only thing I mixed was, I think, white and a cold red, and absolutely nothing else to maintain as much saturation as possible. Then I started painting the flowers. These are a bunch of carnations, I think they're called. So when I'm trying to paint flowers, what I try to do is just see them as a collection of shapes and not as a collection of petals. And then I just try to paint the shape. And the point of this is just that if I was trying to paint every petal, it would take forever. And it would also pretty much just look like a photograph, which is kind of stiff and boring to me. So I try to just make it a more painterly thing by just painting areas of color instead of every individual petal. This is one of my favorite parts. I noticed that the painting was feeling a bit gray, so I filled in the middle color of the background gradient with a kind of yellowish green, which I think brought a lot of life to the colors. Yeah, also it's one of my favorite colors, so I just like it for that reason. At that point, I had blocked in most of the colors. I also tried to be kind of heavy with the oranges and saturated colors on the mice because I think that makes them look a bit more lively. At this point, I could start refining the textures a bit. I have this brush which is close to dying because I don't know, I haven't been taking perfect care of it, so it's a bit frayed now, but that pretty much makes it perfect for painting in fur and stuff like that. So as you can see, I'm fluffing the mice up a bit with this brush as I go here. I'm also putting some of the darkest values in, which are around their little feet. I had a lot of fun while painting this, noticing these little details of what the mice are doing with their feet. Because when I just looked at the picture, I didn't really notice, but if you look in detail, they're really holding on to the flowers quite hard. It's like a little circus act. And especially the mouse in the middle, I think must be doing splits or something to be able to be in that position on the flower. And I think that's quite cute to think about. And of course, then we get to my favorite part, which is adding light reflections to the eyes, which really brings out the life and the spirit in these little creatures. As you can see, I'm actually using quite a dark color. It's a fairly dark gray for the highlight, but the eyes themselves are so dark that it still looks like a nice shine. At that point, I was nearly finished. I just went in with a detail brush to refine very small details, some individual hairs and stuff like that. I usually try not to use this brush for anything else, like bring it out at the very end, so I'm not tempted to over refine it. One important detail that was left was the whiskers on the little mice, and for this I actually busted out my, I think, angle brush or whatever it's called, which is supposed to be really good at even lines and fine lines. I don't actually use this one that much because I have a hard time controlling it, so that's also why I did some practice strokes on the scrap of paper on the side. But yeah, I think it worked out quite decently. I had to go over it a bit again with the background color. But yeah, I'm happy with the end result. And then I was finished with the mice, so I just went back and finished rendering the plant, although I try to keep it kind of undefined and not too detailed because flower stems aren't really the focus here. The focus is the mice. I have a lot of details on those with all the single hairs and stuff to draw detail to them. So basically, I have a plan for what I'm gonna do with this painting. I have a wall in my room that I'm just filling up with paintings, so of course this one was gonna go on there too, and I had to make a nice frame for it. So I just had this cheap frame I bought lying around, and I painted it with the same acrylic ink that I also used for the flowers, so that it would match, and I also think it has quite a cute and happy vibe. And then all that was left was to frame it and to hang it on the wall. And now I have 3 cute little mice to look at every day. Yay!